Richard Dawkins traditionally has said, "Don't debate creationists. That looks good for their resume. It doesn't look good for yours." And I don't know if he talked about exposing those ideas to more people, but flat Earth, for example. Now I plan on I've already done a video on a flat Earth Facebook group just because I find their memes so funny. And if I have an expertise, it's photography, and they seem to put a lot of confidence in these photography-based arguments that are complete nonsense. Mm-hmm. So would you say a person who doesn't take that advice from Richard Dawkins and says, come on and I'll give you equal access to this platform? Because I wouldn't consider the Atheist Experience that, because first of all, you can hang up on them, but it's also shorter things. Is there any responsibility there? Can it be irresponsible to accept debating or sharing a platform with a bad idea?
So I would say not irresponsible in and of itself, but there's certainly ways to do it that could be irresponsible. I disagree with Richard to some extent. I don't think Richard should be debating creationists because I think that does elevate them.
Sure.
I don't think he should be debating biological evolution versus creationism, because that does kind of put them on the same footing, which isn't deserved. Right. That doesn't mean I don't agree with the notion that you shouldn't debate these issues. I'm happy for Aaron to debate them. I'm happy for me to debate them. I'm not a scientist, because I think that you have entirely too many people who already believe this to just ignore it and pretend it will go away.
Yeah.
And the alternatives are either you have some debate or you discuss it without them there. And if you discuss it without them there, you run the risk of creating straw men.
Right.
I think there's exceptions. For example, I can have a debate about, what human rights we should have, et cetera. I don't ever have to speak with anyone from the KKK. I don't have to debate David Duke on human equality. I can fairly represent his views and show why I don't agree with him without giving him a stage to do so. There's nothing intellectually dishonest about me doing that. That said, if the majority of the population started agreeing with the KKK.
That was my next question, actually. Yeah.
Then I think that there may be a moral responsibility to publicly challenge them in as fair of a setting as possible, just so that you don't give them the ammunition of, oh, well, of course it's easy for you to talk about me when I'm not there, but you can't, you're afraid to get on stage with me and blah, blah, blah.
Right.
But that doesn't mean that you have to do it in such a way that it elevates their ideas to be on par with opposition from the start.
I think that my views line up similar. So, for example, I have right now this little asshole of a preacher who I'm not going to say his name on here because I am opposed to giving him more platform, but famously he's been in the news recently for suggesting homosexuals should be killed by the government, and he is now in the comments on videos of mine trying to provoke his way into an invitation on my channel. And I've said straight out, I might make fun of you in some of my videos, but you won't be live talking to me on my channel ever.
Yeah, if you've got the bigger signal and they're desperately trying to get there, it's probably a strategic mistake to help them out by giving them that platform.
Yeah.
It's one of those things. I did the event with Jordan Peterson. People are like, why did you platform that guy? And I was like, first of all, he's more popular than me. I'm not the one doing the platforming. And I'm not doing any no platforming either. But I think there's value in the conversation. And anytime you get somebody whose ideas are this popular, I think it's worth addressing.
Absolutely.
But there are strategic concerns about how to do it right. We used to talk a lot about Westboro Baptist Church. But mostly we'd talk about them when they were in the news, because at that point they're being covered in the national news and we're not.
Right. So I'm going to bring back something that may not be a happy memory. I don't know how you felt about it, but you had a debate in 2014 with David Robertson. I don't want to talk that much about the debate, but he did write about the Atheist Experience, and he described the Atheist Experience as a show in which you fulfill what he calls a mandate from Richard Dawkins to mock Christians. So I just wanted your response to that assertion.
I don't know that I'd ever heard that. I'm pretty sure that David's the guy who had to write some sort of apology post for why he was so mean and terrible to me during the debate, if I'm remembering the right person.
It probably is him, but in this article, he also excuses that away, and that's actually so I'll give you the next question too, just so that Yeah, and you can just do it all together. So later in the article, he's lobbying complaints against the atheist audience who was critical of not what he said, but the ways he said it, which I thought was almost situational irony, because I see people in the comments, well, not on the Atheist Experience, but people talking about the Atheist Experience saying the same thing toward you. So it's not as though that's an atheist or a theist thing. Both sides don't like the way they say it.
It's extra amusing because it wasn't just atheists that were upset with the way he said things. It was Christians who were upset with the way he said things too. So he had to kind of write a defense of why he took the tact he did. I'm not overly concerned about people's opinions on tone. I consider it. I always try to do the right thing. I screw up. I've been mean to people unnecessarily. I've been short-fused unnecessarily, and I try to do better. And if somebody thinks that I've done something wrong, I will consider that, evaluate it. Just the other day, somebody said, "Oh, you keep, getting after the callers for interrupting you while you're speaking, but you interrupt them while they're speaking." As if I didn't know I did that. I absolutely know that I do that, and I do it for reasons I've described before. Number one, if they're using terms that we haven't defined, I want to interrupt to get clarity. Number two, if they're not answering the question that was asked and it doesn't look like they're getting anywhere near it, I'm going to interrupt that, because this isn't a show for them to call in and give a sermon.
Exactly. Yep.
If they don't acknowledge points and instead just move on to the next thing, now we're in a gish gallop. And I've had calls in the past where they would say something, I would jot down the note of what they said, they keep going for several minutes, and then I say, "Back at the beginning, you said this." And then they'll say, "That's not what I said," or "That's not what I meant." And now they get another 5 minutes to derail again.
Right.
At the end of the day, this is our show. The Atheist Experience is our show. And I have a duty to make sure that things progress and that callers aren't wasting time, because there's other callers waiting. Right. Now, with regard to David Robertson saying that I'm operating on a mandate from Richard Dawkins, that's just nuts.
Yeah.
I've done events with Richard. We are friendly. We're not friends. It's not like we have each other's cell phone number or anything. We've done a bunch of events. We get along. I've also called Richard out when he's said things that I disagree with or that I thought were incredibly problematic. I think, and some of them he's apologized. He and I had an argument at lunch one time because I was going to do a debate on abortion, and we had completely different approaches. Now, it was a friendly little disagreement,
right?
But I think he was monumentally wrong, and I told him so. But at the end of the day, Richard Dawkins, as much as I get along with him and admire him in many ways, can't tell me to do shit. And I'm not under a mandate from anybody but me. And even the Atheist Community of Austin it is never going to tell me what I can and can't say. They can say, "You're going to do it our way, you leave the show," in which case I leave the show.
Yeah, exactly.
The same thing's true on Patreon. My patrons who are contributing to the videos that I'm producing, they can say, "I'd like for you to do a video on this," or "Could you address this," or this topic, or anything else. But if they ever come and say, "Don't say that again," or "I'm not going to keep donating," I'm going to say, "Stop donating right now," because I'm going to say it again. But it's a defense mechanism, because if David comes in and views something where he cannot actually counter and offer a reasonable response to why I don't believe in God or why I have objections to the Bible or the Bible's position on slavery, it is very easy, if he only has to talk to believers, to just suggest that we're not being intellectually honest or rigorous, and instead we are following this Pope, because everybody that he's talking to are already in a mindset of following a leader. They're following the Pope, they're following Jesus, they're following their pastor. They have this top-down authoritarian view of how the world proceeds, and we don't fit in that box. So it's very beneficial for him to try to put us in that box.
Right. And to be clear, because I don't want anyone to accuse me, as they definitely will, you didn't provide enough context. He wasn't necessarily saying that Richard directly said it to you. It was that Richard said this at a Reason rally about ridicule and mocking Christians, and that you had taken that as a mandate, essentially. And actually, so I made a post today, and the post was simply that ridicule and satire are valid forms of criticism. You didn't click like on it. No, I'm curious if you think that is the case, like I do.
I'm absolutely a fan of ridicule and satire, despite what I said about The Onion and other satirical sources. When it's done right. And I think I've said many times that ridiculous ideas are by definition deserving of ridicule, but that people are not. I try, and I've failed, but I try not to make sure that I'm not ridiculing people, I'm ridiculing ideas and claims. The unfortunate reality is that those ideas are so foundational to who the person is that you can't avoid them being offended by it anyway, and for them taking it personally.
I think I do think situationally, and I'm not trying to change your mind, I'm just showing where I maybe disagree. Situationally, I do think there are people who you absolutely should ridicule them as soon as they, in a way, we don't disagree far, but as soon as they basically are the representative of that bad idea, then I think it's fine to do that.
And I've done it, and I'm fine with it, kind of take the wind out of these windbags. But I also, whether I'm ridiculing the person or the belief, and I try to do the latter, not the former, I also don't ever begin with ridicule as the first path.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. And I even explained with somebody who asked, because they said it's not constructive. I explained that specifically when you have ideas or people that are spewing bad things like flat earth, anti-vax, that have all the refutation in the world that has been presented to them and they're still sticking to their guns, at that point there's sometimes nothing left to do but ridicule.
There's also a difference here. When I'm doing the TV show, when I'm doing a debate, I don't think I'm going to convince my debate opponent, although I'm always going to present the things that I think should convince them. I'm doing it on behalf of the audience.
Right.
And like the beginning, the very first trick in my Magic and Skepticism show, it has Ray Comfort speaking over the trick that I'm doing. There's no way to deny that I'm in some ways mocking Ray, even though I'm focused on his ideas. And as soon as he's done speaking, I point out that I'm not doing this to make fun of Ray. I'm pointing out that what Ray's saying isn't skepticism, and this is how it led to this. But it's a funny bit. And I hope that Ray gets to see it someday, because he's a nice enough guy that I think he'll largely appreciate it.
The smartest thing he ever did was embrace the Banana Man thing, because it made it less funny.
Well, the bit is the banana bit, but I'll tell you about it another time.
Good. Yeah. Well, and hopefully I'll be able to come see it here soon.